Talk to us about how crazy it is to go through the SOC process in today's world, and how due diligence is so important when it comes to cloud, and the vendors that a SOC provider, a managed service provider that has a SOC certification in today's world, means that they're doing that due diligence on the vendors, that they're doing the due diligence on anyone who might hold a client's data. Talk to us about how complicated that is and what kind of a challenge or compromise it might mean for a client who chooses to do business with an organization that doesn't have SOC.
The purpose of SOC is just to make sure your client's data is secure. That is the real core purpose. It doesn't necessarily deal with your own data, but it kind of encompasses all of it, but it's mostly around making sure your client's data is protected, it's private, it's secure. In the past, there were various risk assessments that you had to do, but now a company that is audited for SOC has to perform an enterprise equivalent security assessment. This includes fraud, this includes vendor management, of course, this includes getting penetration tests done, this includes internal vulnerability scans, this includes making sure that computers are encrypted in your company. And there are just so many little things that have to be done in SOC that it is not surprising to me at all that the majority of managed service providers couldn't even pass a SOC audit if they tried.
Just like you have your financials verified by a CPA, that a SOC process effectively is coming in and it's making sure that you're doing the things right. And a small managed service provider that doesn't take the time or doesn't have the capability to go through that process has no third-party validation that they're taking care of business.
It's not just giving them a report. We have to show them that we can generate that report. We have to show them the meeting minutes of when we had our security assessment, or when we discussed the geographic or economic ramifications for the risk that our company is under. And it's very, very proof-based.
So why wouldn't every managed service provider go through this to provide their clients with the peace of mind?
People don't talk about it. Most IT companies just put it on the table. I mean, we've been to many trade shows, where there are other IT companies, and they don't even mention it. And I think this is another case of where a business owner needs to sweat the small stuff. They need to go, what am I missing? What don't I know? And SOC is one of those things that a managed service provider should absolutely have if you want to make sure your data is secure.
Some business owners, when you hear about all the work that has to go into SOC, they hear price tags. It's a bigger organization. You have to have all these extra moving pieces so that you're driving the cost of delivering managed services higher and higher and higher. So the reality of it is to do things right, it does cost more. But you can't not take that chance when it comes to business in today's world, because you're talking about your data. You're talking about your baby. You're always going to get the safest and the highest protected environment that you can for your kids. And when you're talking about your business, the data is the equivalent to your kids. And while it may be a little more expensive to make sure that these processes are in place, and it may be a little more expensive to go through all of these things, it verifies that the business that is providing your IT and protecting your data are doing things right. And the reality of it is that most small managed service providers are fly-by-night, or the one-man, two-man shops, or the organizations that are doing it as a bolt-on. They can't do it. They have no way of verifying that their data and that their processes are being done in a way that absolutely protects the client.
And a lot of businesses might hear this and think, well, I need to get my SOC compliance in order. Well, it's not about necessarily performing your own SOC audit, but when it comes to IT, it's about making sure that you work with a company that has performed a third-party validation that is SOC compliant, and that you can rely on them to make sure that your data is secure, that it's private, and that you're not going to lose confidential and personal information.
So we mainly hear about SOC in banks. Mm-hmm. How soon is it going to be the buzzword in healthcare and other industries out there? Because banking is where we hear about it mostly. And
Sure. Well, banking obviously requires that third-party validation in every aspect of their business that things are going well, and they require that those outside assessments are being performed. Obviously, that's coming down the road with HIPAA and the different versions and iterations associated with that. But there is proposed regulation right now, regulations. There are proposals that are trying to be pushed into legislation around what it means to be a certified managed service provider. That if you don't have a SOC certification or equivalent, that you can't call yourself a managed service provider, because the reality of it is that in today's world, data drives too much of business, and it creates a false sense of security for a business owner or for an executive in an organization, that just because somebody can put that piece of paper in front of them and sign on the dotted line that says, hey, we'll respond in a certain amount of time, I know what I'm doing because I'm an IT geek. The reality of it is that's bullshit. Unless you have a third party that comes in and verifies that you know what the hell you're doing nothing but putting your customer at risk.
We've been SOC compliant for going on 4 years, and it has completely changed our culture. It's not just something that we do every now and then. It's not just something that we do during the audit period. It's something that has changed our processes. It's changed our policies. It's changed the manner in which we work together, and because we at any given moment, someone is thinking about, am I doing this in the most secure manner? When we look at all the tools that we have, SOC has helped us to look at these tools individually and go, are these actually the most secure they can be? We've seen multiple instances in the last couple months even, where the tools that an IT company use have been compromised, and that the hacker has then been able to get to all of their client base and spread ransomware, spread a multitude of other issues. And so by being SOC compliant, we look at things through a different lens. We're looking at things from the standpoint of, how do we ensure that the tools we have are the most secure they can be, and how can we ensure that our customers' data is the most secure? And there have been times when we have gone against the recommendations of software vendors to make the software ultimately more secure and the experience